Why, hello there, everybody. How are you doing? It's me again. And today's date is January 12th, 2018, or 1/12/2018. That is the date that I am recording this portion of this video. In this video, what I am going to go over and show you is exactly, we're going to look into the writers of the arrest and booking report narrative. And I will explain to you, and you will clearly see exactly why it's written the way that it is. I will then go back over the arrest and booking report narrative and tell you exactly what really happened. And you will clearly see exactly, it matches up exactly with their own handwriting, their own words, timeline, everything. Okay? Now, what you have to remember while you're watching all this is that the chief judge of the Fourth Circuit Court has had this information since July 21st, 2015. The sheriff, the Jacksonville sheriff, the Jacksonville undersheriff, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department has had this information and known this very same information since July 21st, 2015, which means that they've had this information and known about this information as of 12/3/2017 for 2 years, 4 months, and 12 days. And yet, here in January of 2018, this is still outstanding. I'm still reporting crimes, which means they're all choosing to be co-conspirators. You're starting to get an idea of how big this is. And the people that are allowing this to keep going on are not these criminals, because they also, look, we don't have a chief judge right now. We've got a criminal. We don't have a sheriff. We don't have an undersheriff. They're criminals. They're co-conspirators in this conspiracy to obstruct justice. The blood of Cherish Periwinkle is on their hands. That's what's got them so scared. The people that are allowing this to continue to happen is you Christians. Christians that are afraid to rock the boat. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. I'm not trying to shame you. Your actions are shaming yourself. All you got to do is repent. That's it. Just repent and demand that the law is being enforced, rather. That's it. Stand up and demand that these criminals be removed, that the law be applied. What am I wanting? I have been told by my God to do whatever I have to do to get before the Honorable Mallory D. Cooper. Well, guess what? The Donald Smith case trial, sentencing trial, is coming back, is going to be it's starting back up in February. That's February of 2018. Guess who's overseeing that sentencing trial? The very woman. The very one who is on the hook for all of these criminals' actions, the Honorable Mallory D. Cooper. See how it's come full circle? See how God works? So, if all you criminals, you already know I will go wherever it is that my God tells me to go, and I will do whatever it is that my God tells me to do, and I will say whatever it is that my God tells me to say. Hence, all of these videos. Hence all the information that I sent in to you. You had an opportunity to fulfill your oath, but you chose to become a co-conspirator. I'm not mad at you. My first concern for you is for your eternal soul. You need to repent. Do not take the coward's way out, because the law is going to be applied. The law is going to be enforced, and you all are going to prison. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can't shame me. You cannot. What exactly are you going to do to me? You all have had 20 years to do something to me. And what have you been able to do? Nothing, except dig your own graves deeper. Inaction is an action when an action is required. Doing nothing is doing something when something needs to be done. I called up and told that to the chief judge. That's right. I called up the chief judge 4 different times. It's on the Tube U channel. All you got to do is go watch it. Folks, this is coming to an end. This is coming to an end. I'm not just standing for myself. I'm standing for the 3 Thornton women. There's a 16-year-old little girl that thinks, well, maybe she's 17 now, but she is convinced that it's her fault that Cherish Periwinkle was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by Donald Smith. And who's the one that let loose Donald Smith? Why, that was Terrence Martin. You've already seen the false papers that's in the felony case file. You've already seen his signature. Terrence Martin, you are a criminal. You're going to prison. And that's the reason why they are so scared, because they have all been caught. This has been going on for long before they started doing this to me. Simply because you all operate under works, you all would rather shame people. You think you're better than somebody simply because you go to a church, because you don't do this, you don't do that. That's called works. Is what it is. You need to repent. And all you people that are making all the stupid little comments in the videos, I'm quite sure that I haven't posted them as of the making of this video. I haven't posted any videos yet. But I'm quite sure there's going to be some imbecile there's some control freak they can't help themselves. They're going to shout out and say something. Well, I'm still reporting crimes. I'm standing to get my life back, to get what is owed me. You all 100 plus of you all criminals owe me for 20 years of my life. Each and every one of you owes me $20 million. Bare minimum. Do the math. Y'all have slandered me. Y'all have libeled me. Y'all have put my physical well-being in danger. All in an attempt to cover up your crimes. You all are pathetic. You're a joke. You are pathetic. And the only thing you all can do is sit here and still, in the year 2018, goad me. Threaten me. I'm coming. Because not only am I standing for myself, not only am I coming to get my life back, get what's owed me, according to the law, because so says the word of Almighty God, because so says Almighty God, I'm standing for that little 16, maybe now 17-year-old Thornton girl who believes it's her fault. She's the reason why Cherish Periwinkle died, was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. And she was made to believe that by the very criminal who unleashed Donald Smith onto the general public so that he could kidnap, rape, and murder 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle. That's Terrence Martin. Charlie Coffer, you're on the hook too, son. You're a criminal as well. I've got nothing to be afraid of you. You are defeated. I'm a child of the Most High God. My God does not lead me to destruction. He leads me, just go read the 23rd Psalm, folks. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Okay? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou, O Lord, art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Now, who else am I standing up for? I'm going to make sure that the real criminals, Donald Smith is not the, Donald Smith may have been the one that kidnapped, raped, and murdered 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle. But he had assistance. He had assistance. One of his assistants was Terrence Martin. Another one of his assistants was Charlie Coffer. Change your name all you want, Charles. You're still guilty. He had assistants. Bram Scharf. He had assistants. Taggart. He had assistants. Nathaniel Glover. He had assistants. Sergeant David Stevens. He had assistants. He had assistants. I can't name off all the names. I'll be sitting here for another hour. So in this video, what we're going to do, I'm coming. I'm coming. Because you all have been mocking my God. You all have taken my life from me. And I'm coming to get it back. There is no apology. Go try to give an apology to the Periwinkle family. There is no making up for this. Folks, you all need to stop overlooking things. I'm talking to you Christians. You need to stop being polite and thinking that Christians are just so nice. Oh, just be nice. Let's just pray about it. Well, then guess what? The Word of God is clear. The Word of God is true. The Word of God says, if the ox is in the ditch, you need to get the ox out of the ditch. Well, we got a big, fat, rotten ox in the ditch. And I'm going to get that big, fat, rotten ox out of the ditch so that everything can work properly. Because this is a problem that's affecting you. Because our laws are not being properly applied. Because they can't be properly applied. Because they're all a bunch of criminals that are sitting up in there. All a bunch of fakes and frauds and counterfeits. It's time to clean house. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, so shall he also reap. Well, guess what? It's reaping time. So let's get on with this video so you can see for yourself. So you can see for yourself. And I already can tell you what's going to happen. You control freaks are going to say, oh, I don't think you're lying. I think you're lying. Prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. It's looking, staring you right in the face. You are the problem. You're going to call yourself out because, well, you're a control freak. That's what you do. Now, you Christians, the Spirit of Almighty God is going to start convicting you. He already is. If you've gotten this far, He's already convicting you. And He's telling you. He's showing you. He's showing you the truth. And the truth is going to make you free. You've already been set free by what Christ did on the cross, on Golgotha. Now the truth is going to set you free. And you are going to wake up and realize that there is no one above you, there is no one below you, and if you've been judging people, if you've been thinking and believing that you're better than somebody, He's waking you up and realizing it is by grace. It is only by the grace of God that you have a relationship with Almighty God, because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And you are waking up and realizing that 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 20, you were purchased with a price. You are no longer your own. It's time for you to decide. It's time for you to choose. We're separating the wheat from the chaff here, folks, is what we're finding out. And what's going to happen? The wheat is going to be taken and used to make good bread, and the chaff, well, it's going to be burned and destroyed. because it's useless. That's all we're seeing right now, folks. That's what's going on right before your very eyes. This is over and done with. I am just waiting for the word from Almighty God to go do the very same thing I've always been doing since May 2nd, 2013. Report these crimes and trust and believe that my God and my God's law and other ministers of God, real, true law enforcement officers, are going to stand up and do their job, because that's what's going on with real, true law enforcement officers. They're saying, I am not going to have a part of this. You're not going to link me to the raping, to the kidnapping, raping, and murdering of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle, and I cannot, No, I'm gonna go. Somebody needs to go tell that Thornton girl. Somebody needs to go tell the Thornton family. It's not their fault that Cherish Periwinkle was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. Period. But I digress. Let's get on with this video now. And again, what we're doing, first part of it, is we're going over and we're looking into the writers of that wonderful piece of fiction that they call a narrative. And you will clearly see and understand exactly why it's written the way that it's written. And then I go over what really happened. And you will clearly understand by their own words why it says what it says. And remember, these people have known this information since July 21st, 2015, and have chosen to do nothing about it. And remember, my version of events back in 1997 was recorded by the very criminals that did this to me. They caught themselves in their own catch-22. They caught themselves in their own paradoxical situation. How about that? That's why you don't try to set up people. Period. So let's get on with this video, shall we?
Now, the easiest way to explain why this arrest and booking report is written the way that it is and why it says what it says, the easiest way to explain all that is to look into the writers of this arrest and booking report. Specifically, we're going to look into Mr. J. Strickland, or better known as J.W. Strickland. Okay? And that's what we're going to do right now. Okay? Documented proof of what he has been doing for the past 8 months and 3 weeks leading up to this first ever reverse escort sting operation. And once again, we will be utilizing the Florida Times Union, where they explain and have documented exactly what J.W. Strickland has been doing for the 8 months and 3 weeks prior to this first ever reverse escort sting operation. And as soon as the first one, it's all going to make perfect sense as to why this arrest and booking report says what it says and why it was written the way that it was written. Okay? So, the first place that we're going to start at is a story published on Saturday, May 3rd, 1997 by the Times Union. And the title of the story, as you can see, is Jacksonville.com Investigating Cyberspace 5/3/1997. Okay? And it's about Doug Ream knows pedophiles. It's about we're talking about playing like we're little kids on the internet. Okay? Now, first let me say this about this. these sting operations are as well nothing more than setups, nothing more than dangling and tempting dangling and tempting people to commit a very sick offense. Okay? And in fact, they don't even have to do it anymore nowadays because IP addresses and everything can be traced immediately. All you need in order to catch a real pedophile, a real predator, is an honest kid who's not flirting online. That's all you need. Because once the crime is committed, and once anything is done on the internet, especially nowadays, it's logged, and they got them, hook, line, and sinker. So there's no need today for the police to keep doing this, and that's why a lot of they've had people that have ended up killing themselves live on TV while they were barricaded inside their house simply because another institution, remember Dateline used to do these things all the time to catch a predator. Well, they did that one time to the wrong guy, and he ended up blowing his brains out in the house while the people were there. How you like that? So it basically, you know how it works. The guy poses, but I want you all to focus in on this. In Jacksonville, 2 detectives in the sheriff's office vice unit have been posing as young children on the internet for the past 7 weeks. Now, when was this story written? This story was written on Saturday, May 3rd, 1997. 7 weeks prior to May 3rd, 1997 would be March 10th, 1997. And remember, the first ever reverse escort sting operation took place the first week of December. That is December 1st through 7th. Okay? That's when the ad ran. That's how long the ad ran. So what you have is you've got somebody who for 8 months and 3 weeks has been portraying himself as a child. Okay? But now, and who's this person? In Jacksonville, 2 detectives in the sheriff's office vice unit have been posing as young children on the internet for the past 7 weeks. In that time, they have made 7 arrests. 1 arrest a week. Said who? Why, it said Detective J.W. Strickland. He's one of the guys posing as a child. Now, right here is one of their tremendous stories that they got to. They caught the person doing this. Okay, investigators said William Thomas Strong Jr. We're right here. Okay, of the 6,000 block of Greenwood Lane West in Jacksonville solicited sex on America Online, so you know it's an old, you know what year it is. It's the very beginning of the internet. Okay? It's 1997. From a Clay County deputy who identified himself as a what? 14-year-old boy. Now, even though it doesn't say Jacksonville, Clay County doesn't, I don't believe Clay County in 1997 had a vice division. But Clay County, St. Johns County, they all work, and Duval County sheriffs, they all work together. And the guy that this article is written about, right here, he's with the FDLE. Okay? As a special agent with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Reenman has spent more than 1,000 hours online posing as everything from a young boy or girl to an adult pedophile to capture people who prey on children. Okay? So, and again, notice it's a 14-year-old boy. that this person was going after. 14-year-old. Remember that. Now, this next story was published Friday, June 6th, 1997, and it's Man Gets Internet Date with Vice Squad. And again, who do we have? On Wednesday, detectives J.W. Strickland and Richard True of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office logged on to America Online's computer service posing as a 15-year-old boy. Now, notice also in both cases, they named the person who was attempting. That is an attempt to hook up with a 15-year-old boy. Also, this was an attempt to hook up with a 14-year-old boy. Not little girls, little boys. What law enforcement does not tell you is that I believe it's like 80% of the pedophiles are attracted to prepubescent little boys, not little girls. Prepubescent little boys. The vast majority of children who are abused by pedophiles are little boys. They do not report that because they do not want the stigma of that attached to the child. They do not want the child to have to live through and have everybody know that as a child they were violated sexually by another male. Okay, so there we got Strickland stating that they've been doing this since March 10th of 1997, and then here in June 6, 1997, we still have him doing the same thing, posing as a 15-year-old little boy. Now here we have, this one was published on June 28th, but the story was written on Friday, June 27th. Okay, and we got to come down here to crime news. Okay, internet charge. A 45-year-old Arlington man was arrested and charged with soliciting sex from a minor on the internet in a police undercover sting. Vice detectives J.W. Strickland and R. True logged on to America Online Thursday, telling others using the computer service they were a 14-year-old little boy. While in the chat room, police said Alan Lee Patterson, 45, of the 13,200 block of Franklin Brook Lane South, sent them messages. Police said Patterson, a salesman at Home Depot, eventually asked for and received a telephone number. Eventually. They sat there and they kept dangling a carrot. They talked this guy into it. This guy has got no history of it. Is it sick? Yes, it's sick. But they created the criminal. They created it. And again, there is no need for this. And there is no need to have these things anymore because of so much tracking on the internet. They know exactly where you are and what you're doing. They're looking at your computer screen, folks. The only reason why they get away with it is because the only reason why the child doesn't want to report it is because they don't want to be shamed. What are you doing talking about sex? And the only reason why they are afraid of shame is because, well, that's what we do. We shame people who have sex out of wedlock when it's not a crime. But yet we turn around and arrest them for it. Now, hunting down searching for a child underneath the age of 16, yep, that's a crime. But eventually asked for and received a telephone number. Police said Patterson called and set up a meeting with the boy so they could have sex in his car. The detectives met Patterson in the parking lot of the Crystal Restaurant at 4500 block San Juan Avenue about 3 p.m. and arrested him. They created the criminal. Lost people do bad things. All criminal acts are sin, but not all sin is a criminal act. So when you've got somebody that doesn't have a relationship with their creator, this is what you get. They can be talked into, eventually, they can be browbeaten into, they can be tempted to eventually ask for and receive and follow through with something because, hello, the Word of God is clear, the Word of God is true. The devil wants to sift you like wheat. He doesn't care about these people. Either the ones doing the tempting or the one following through with it. The solution, if you haven't already guessed, is Jesus. But again, notice there wasn't a real child because this is done on the computer. And notice they name everybody. Give the name, the address, their age, and the address. There it is. They arrested this dude. There's his name. And here we go. William Barron Crone was charged with soliciting sex. They named the guy. They even say where he worked. Police said Crone, the manager of a recycling business, asked the detectives for a telephone number after a brief conversation through the computer. Police said Crone gave details of a sexual encounter he wanted and left a pager number. The next day, police paged Crone and set a meeting on the corner of 7400 block of Blanding Boulevard. Police said Crone gave them a description and was arrested. This is the second one that was met in a public place. This guy meets on the corner of the 7400 block of Blanding Boulevard, and this guy was arrested at the Crystal Restaurant. Standard operating procedure to arrest these these people that are seeking out and looking for children is to arrest them in public. That way, it doesn't give them an out to say, "Well, I know these people. I wasn't really looking for anybody. I just got lost. I was knocking on the door for directions." No, you have them meet at a public location. You know, kind of like 4544 Atlantic Boulevard Racetrack Gas Station. Okay. And then Jacksonville 2 detectives, investigators said Strong, 6400 block of Westwood Lane in Jacksonville, solicited sex on American Online from a Clay County deputy who had identified himself as a 14-year-old boy. Strong was arrested when he went to meet the deputy. You see how this works? 14-year-old boy, meet him in public. Now you're starting to understand why this arrest and booking report is written this way. Now you're starting to understand exactly why they interjected a 14-year-old child into this. Because we already know, again, folks, we already know there is no disposition on this. We already know that there is no child. We already know that, and that there is no such thing as an attempted lewd and lascivious upon a minor. We already know that when anyone who solicits a minor to prostitute themselves, that this Florida statute is not used and it's definitely not a misdemeanor charge. It's a felony charge. It's called procuring a minor, a person under the age of 18, to prostitution. And we already know that this Florida statute 800.04, needs an actual child underneath the age of 16. And we also know that there is no such thing as an attempted lewd and lascivious upon a minor. And we know those facts from the 5th District Court of Appeals of the great state of Florida. And we already know that this has no disposition on it, meaning it's never been in court. And the reason why was because, well, there's no victim. So again, this narrative is written to explain why they had first harassed me. It's written after the fact. It's written after they had already committed all of these crimes, and they were trying to get away with it. Because if this, here's how it works, folks. If this arrest and booking report is not prosecuted, then I'm cut loose. And they can't and then the criminals who have harassed me, who have falsely detained me, and who have kidnapped me, they have to answer to the people that allowed them to do this. In other words, nothing's going to happen to them. So their goal is to convince me that I did something, but they just couldn't prove it. The goal of writing this arrest and booking report, basically Strickland and was it Boehmer? Strickland and Boehmer are playing stupid and saying, well, I thought, because they're caught. And now that they have me locked in handcuffs in the back of a police car and have me sitting not in front of my house, nope. They have me sitting in a parking lot somewhere, I believe it was on Beach Boulevard, is where they drove me to. And I sat there for another 2.5 hours. But we'll get to that. So now let's look back again here. When Stevens, Sergeant Stevens, the head of Vice, talks about me. Another wanted a 14-year-old little girl. Hold on a second. How come you don't name me? Why did you not arrest me? Florida Times Union, why didn't you all ask, who was this guy that wanted, because your brain registers wanted, that this guy's a threat. Why doesn't it say asked? Who is this guy? And what is he being charged with? That alone is a story in its own. That's what this story says. That's what this story says. And that's what this story says. They're all about individuals who wanted to hook up with a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 14-year-old. Well, why doesn't this article name me, give my address? because all of these guys, there is no real child involved in this. It's just a bunch of vice detectives. How come they list the name of this guy that wasn't even speaking? He was just merely speaking with a vice detective. This guy, they name him, give his address, and he's just speaking to a vice officer who is portraying themselves, pretending to be a 15-year-old boy, and this person is pretending to be is speaking to a speaking with J.W. Strickland, pretending to be a 14-year-old boy, and you all put out all of their names and addresses. There's their names and addresses. Where's his name? 29-year-old Orange Park man, William Bourne, was charged with an arrest on Wednesday. Okay? And Alan Lee, and then here's this guy. Investigators said William Thomas Strong. So you're going to call out all of these guys name by name, and in two cases, list an address. Oh, why isn't this guy's address listed? I'm going to tell you why, because that case I can't find that case anywhere. How about that? But that's another story. So, Times Union, how come you all aren't, as well as the Jacksonville Sheriff's Vice Office, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, the Vice Unit, how come you're not warning all of Jacksonville about the person that wanted a 14-year-old little girl? I'm going to tell you why. Because I did not want nor ask for a 14-year-old little girl. And if they would have put my name, well, then that's libel. That was put in there to keep me silent. You'll understand why. You will understand why. But this wasn't written to warn the public about anything, because what exactly are you worrying about? That there's some man out there, undisclosed age, who wants a 14-year-old little girl. Well, I got guaranteeing, I'm telling you, there's probably some sick person out there that's a male of some age that's wanting a 14-year-old, desiring to hook up with a 14-year-old girl. This speaks volumes, folks. That was there to discredit me to my immediate family. To try to keep me silent. What exactly am I supposed to say? Who are they going to believe? Are they going to believe the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, the courts, the state attorney's office, or are they going to believe me? The one that, according to them, wanted a 14-year-old little girl. Because if the truth ever comes out, they're all going to go to prison. Translation, folks, they wrote this arrest and booking report simply to save their jobs. Because as you will see, they had a heart attack. Has this 12/18 arraignment date ever been filled? No. Why? Because as soon as this document comes to pass, it gets its day in court, they're all going to prison. That's why, folks. That's why. So, in order to, it was their initial intention to write something that plausible And Strickland goes back to to his strengths, which is setting up people on the internet. Yet this whole conversation happened on the telephone. I'm not in a chat room looking for little kids. I'm calling an ad of an escort business that the Jacksonville Vice put in the newspaper, encouraging people to call. And all I ask for, I don't ask for girls. I don't ask to be called. I ask for information on how it all works. And then they turn around and they keep calling me back for 2.5 hours. So, do you understand now why it's written the way it is? It's written to discredit me. It's written in the remember what the transfer. Hold on, let me get that back. Remember, transfer, and this is on the Wikipedia page. Transfer is a technique used in propaganda and advertising, also known as association. This is a technique of projecting positive or negative qualities of a person, entity, object, or value, and which is an individual, group, organization, nation, patriotism, etc., to another in order to make the second more acceptable or discredit. It invokes an emotional response, which stimulates the target, which is you, to identify with recognized authorities. So, in other words, what that means here is the first emotional response. This guy was trying to attempt a lewd lascivious on a minor, just like all of these predators do on the internet. And we've named them. Yet for some reason, in this 1997 story, when they say that I supposedly wanted a 14-year-old little girl, they don't list my name. They don't list my age, nothing. Nor do they say what happened to him, because there was no crime. I didn't want or ask for anything from anyone. The only thing I asked for was information. So, and then this is designed to get an emotional response out of you. This guy actually solicited a minor to prostitute themselves. And again, the reason why police officers are such terrible liars, they know that it wasn't, that Florida statute 796.07 is not used when a child is involved. And soliciting a minor to prostitute themselves is not a misdemeanor. It is procuring a person under the age of 18 for prostitution, and it's a second-degree felony. So, all of this arrest and booking report was written to discredit me, to slander me, to get as they say here, to invoke an emotional response from you, the person reading it. And that will become perfectly clear to you as I now go through this narrative. Maybe now you understand why this arrest and booking report is still sitting at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. The original arrest and booking report is still sitting today in the year 2017 at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office with all of these false charges, made-up charges, emotionally charged charges with no disposition, because it documents all of their crimes. And here we go. I'm going to try to do this straight through with just a minimal amount of pausing. On 12/3/1997, Vice detectives were working an escort investigation through an ad in the Florida Times-Union. The defendant called the number of the escort business, talked with Detective Strickland, who was posing as the manager of the business, and asked for information on the available girl escorts. And we are still right here. Detective Strickland told the defendant he would have Sabrina, Officer Ratley, posing as an escort, call him. That's the first case of entrapment and that they did. Officer Ratley called the defendant. Second case of entrapment that they tried. And over the ensuing conversation, the defendant wanted a younger girl. So Officer Ratley told him she would call him back later. Okay, that's where we're going to stop. Now, let me go back up, and we are going to tell you right there with her, that sentence, everything that's been said so far, right there, was what happened over 2 hours and about 15 minutes. Okay? All right? So, so here's how it started. Here's what happened. Did I call the phone number? Yes. Did I ask for information? Yes, I did. I asked for information on how it all worked. And as we saw in the other, in the Times-Union story from 12/12/1997, he didn't give me any information. He didn't tell me how much or anything. Why? Again, because I'm not calling up asking how much is it to see a girl. I'm not calling up and asking what type of girls do you have. I'm calling up and asking for information on how it all worked. Again, my exact words were to him, hey man, look, I keep seeing your ad in the Florida Times-Union. Again, this is December 3rd when I was calling him. What time of day is it, December 3rd? Because remember, there is no timeline on this narrative. In 1997, I had my own lawn service. And December is very slow because the grass isn't really growing. Okay? So I got home. I was probably done with my day's work, probably about 2 o'clock. So I headed back to the house, and on the way back to the house, every day, I always stopped off at the racetrack gas station. What racetrack gas station? Why, this racetrack gas station, 4544 Atlantic Boulevard. I was there daily, multiple times a day. I was there so many times they didn't even charge me for soda refills. I got my gas there because it's a gas station and I live right down the block. So I stopped there just like I did every day, and I bought the evening paper. I bought a Florida Times-Union. Now, I don't read anything except the sports page. That's it. So I stopped off at the racetrack gas station, said hello to everybody because everybody knew me. Because I had been living at the time at that address for since I believe 92 or 93, 1992 or 1993. So it's at least 4 or 5 years that I've already been living there. Okay, so and it's walking distance. Everybody knows me. Everybody knows what I do. I'm friends with all of the employees because I'm there every day. So I stopped off. I got my Florida Times Union, and then got my free soda refill because again they didn't charge me for my soda refill. Every now and then I'll just go up in there and buy a new cup and pay for the new cup, and then every time I wanted a refill, just go on in and get a refill. Because again, I'm there every day spending money, buying snacks, buying gas, and I live right down the block. So I get the newspaper and I go home and I read the sports page. Now, back then in 2000, okay, or not, I'm sorry, not in 2000. Back then, the Florida Times Union doesn't have, the only time that the classified section has its own section is on Sundays because it's so big. Every during the week, and this is a Wednesday, December 3rd. It's a Wednesday. Okay. During the week, the front page of the classified section was always either the last page of it was included in the sports page. Don't ask me why. Go ask them why. I don't know why. Okay? But sometimes it was the last 2 or 3 pages of the sports page was the front page of the classified section, which is where the escort ads were listed. You heard me right. You didn't have to hunt them down. They were listed on the front page of the classified section of the Florida Times Union. So nobody's going and hunting and looking for everybody. It's right there. And where is it at? Right in the middle of the sports page. In fact, some of the services, some of the adult clubs would post ads, print ads, in the sports section itself. All of the bikini bars and supposed high class areas, they posted ads. The Florida Times Union has no problem taking money from anybody and has no problem advertising for strip clubs, escort services, and the like. They still don't have a problem. Well, they don't do it anymore. Because of this. Because this happened. That's why. Okay? So, I come home. I get home. I get off work. I'm probably done by about 2 o'clock. So, probably by the time I get home, it's probably about 2:30. So, I'm sitting at my table in my kitchen reading the sports page. And why am I reading the sports page? Well, hello, I'm only a high school basketball coach. And I'm a sports fan. I like sports. That's not a crime either. So again, I'm done reading the sports page, and you're flipping through the last page, and then bam, there's the front page of the classified section with all of the escorts, and their ad was the second ad listed, and it was the biggest ad listed on the front of the classified section of the Florida Times Union. Big, huge thing. So I'm like, I know what a prostitute is, for crying out loud. Hello, I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. The song House of the Rising Sun, it's a whorehouse. I know exactly what a prostitute is. I just was curious, as I had never seen advertising for escort services in a newspaper before. And I'm from New Orleans. How about that? So I said, I wonder how it all works around here. So I said, well, you know what? If I'm going to call up anybody, I'm going to call up the biggest ad because they're probably going to give me the most information. They've probably been doing it the longest. So I call up the ad. And what do I ask for? I ask for information on how it all works. Again, this is exactly what I told him. By this time, it's probably about 3:15 or 3:30 because I had to read the sports section, for crying out loud. I had to find out what was going on with my team because in 1997 I had taken that year off from coaching. The 1997-1998 basketball season, I took off because I had been doing it for 2 years nonstop. By nonstop, I mean every month of the year because we ran a basketball program. We didn't have a basketball team. We did something year round, weightlifting, summer camps, and alike. And we had just in 1996-97, the 1996-97 basketball year, which ended in March, we had made it to the state Final Four. And we lost to the eventual state champion. So all I'm doing, it's December, it's basketball season. In fact, I had already contacted the coach to find out where they were at. They were going to be playing at Andrew Jackson High School. And I said, you know what, I think I might swing over and watch you all. Because hello, I am a certified coach with the Duval County Public School System. So I'm looking at the newspaper trying to see how my team is doing and how the coach is doing and everything. And notice, no, I'm not going to name the high school because I'm not going to shame anybody. If they want to say who they are, that's their business. Okay? But I don't have anything to prove. So I saw the ad. So I read the sports paper, and then I see the classified ad, and I said, I wonder how it all works here. I wonder how they do it here in Baxonville, because everything's backwards here. Everything's but backwards. These people are they're 10 to 20 years behind the time. Okay? Period. So so I call up, and again, I say, I want information. Hey, buddy, I keep seeing you ad in the Florida Times Union in the classified section because it's Wednesday. I saw it Monday. I saw it Tuesday. And now here again, I'm seeing it on Wednesday. And it's, what, about 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon. And that's when he says, for whatever reason, he knew that if I gave that information, again, I didn't call up asking for what the available girls. I called up asking for information on how it all worked, and he knew that if he gave me that information, well, all I was just going to say is, thank you so much, man. Have a nice day, and hang up. So what does he tell me? He tells me, well, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll have Sabrina call you. So, yeah, he did. Detective Strickland told me he would have Sabrina call me. And, yeah, she did call me. And the first conference, she's like, well, hey, I'm so glad you called because, and they always play the victim. Always. You see, folks, that they're doing it for money. But Officer Ratley evidently hasn't done any kind of homework on escorts or anything, because this is over the conversation. This is what I'm like. Okay, so, and she asked me my name, so I can tell her my name. I'm not doing anything illegal. Got nothing to hide. So then she says, okay, well, here's how it works. It costs $80. She either said 80 or 100. I can't remember what was what. I think she said $100. No, she said $100. It costs $100. And what I do is I come over and spend some time with you. I said $100 just to have you come over, and then she says right off the bat, she says, "Well, I do work off of tips." I said, "Tips? Tips for what?" Well, I can offer other things, like a back rub, or I can give you a nice lingerie show, or something else. Now, right then and there, that's a solicitation, folks. Right then and there, I knew exactly what was being offered, and I just said, "Oh, okay, I understand what you mean." And then she says, "Okay, great. So would you like me to come over?" I said, "Wait a minute. Well, let me back up." Before she got to that, I said, uh, uh, she said, "I'm real glad you called because it's really been a slow week." Really been a slow week. And I get paid per every person that I see. I said, "Well, then you can't be getting paid too much because I'm sure there's not that many people around here that have $100 just to spend $100 an hour just to sit down and have somebody come talk to them." She says, "Well, I don't even make all of that." I said, "What?" She goes, "No, no, no. This I have to pay the service their portion," or maybe she said cut. And she says, "At the end of the week, my paycheck, you heard me, my paycheck is based on how much money and how many people I saw. Because I get a portion. They get $80 of that $100. I said, "Then how in the world do you make a living?" She says, that's when she said, "Well, I work off of tips." I said, "Tips? What kind of things do you do for tips?" And that's when she said, "Well, I can do a lingerie show, or I can give you a nice back rub, or whatever else you want to do that'll make you happy." I ain't stupid. I may have been born at night, but I wasn't born last night. And I'm like, "Okay, I see what this is about." And then she says, "Great. So would you like me to have you come over?" I said, "No." I said, "No, no, no. I don't think so. I don't think so. But you know what? If I change my mind, I'll be sure to give you a call back. Thank you so much. Have a nice day." And then I hung up the phone. And then she proceeded to call me back every 5 to 10 minutes, begging, begging to come over. Every time it got more and more, and the first 2 or 3 times, I just overlooked it. I was just like, "I'm sorry. No, well, have you changed your mind yet? Do you want me to come over? I really need the money." "No, that's okay. That's all right. No, I still haven't made my mind. No, I still don't want you to come over. But again, if I decide to see somebody, I'll be sure to give you a call." And the reason why she kept doing it is because, again, they were convinced that everyone who called that phone number wanted to see a prostitute and had at least $100 on them to pay for the prostitute. Anywhere from $110 to $150. Remember the article in the Florida Times Union? That's what they said. That price is cheaper than the 100 to 150 fee most services charge. So what they were convinced of is that anybody that was calling that number had at least $110 to $150 cash money on them to pay for sex. Okay? So, as soon as the police officer gets there As soon as you agree that that's the reason why they were there, as soon as you admit that, hello, okay, I'm willing to pay you 60 or an $80 to drive you over, and then all they got to do is just say, um, all they got to do is just start talking about sex acts. When sex acts were discussed, the callers found out all they got for their money was an escort to jail. And what exactly are you going to say? It's called a paradoxical situation. It's called a catch-22. You called up this escort service. You paid money to have them come to you. And now you're talking about sex, and you're sitting there with $150. You were willing to pay for sex. Of course, they leave out the part that they're the ones that made the offer. They're the ones that put the ad in. It's a shame tactic. That's all it is. So anyway, after about the third time, I'm starting to be like, you know what? I don't have any money on me. I don't want to see these people. I never ask anybody to keep calling me back. But after the third time, the fourth time she calls me up, I tell her, I told her point blank, I said, you know what? Look, you need to stop calling me. Okay? You need to stop calling me. Stop calling me. I already told you if I want to see somebody, I will give you a call. I will call you back. But I don't want to see anybody. So chances are I'm not going to call you back. Okay? Thank you. Have a nice day. What they were afraid of and what they were convinced of is, again, everybody that calls that ad is looking for a prostitute. Everybody that calls that ad has at least $100, if not $150 on them to pay money to see a prostitute. So all they have to do to catch you and to shame you and arrest you, or not arrest you, but falsely detain / imprison you and then kidnap you, is show up. Because again, what exactly are you supposed to say? You called up the service, they showed up to your house, you gave them money, and now they can say whatever the heck they want to say. Because that's why she started talking on the phone and saying, back rubs or, whatever else you wanted. I didn't talk about sex with nobody. I'm not looking for sex. But they lead the conversation. So at the fourth time, I'm like, you know what? These people are up to no daggum good. Please let me come over. Please let me come over. She's already told me that she's hard up on money. Because that's what she kept saying every single time. I really, 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 really need to make some money. I'll do anything to make some money. Anybody that wants to come over to your house that bad, after you tell them no, is up to no good. Up to no good. I'm not going to tell these people where in the heck I live. Why? So then they can come over tomorrow when I'm out at work and rob me? No, thank you. No, stop calling me. Stop calling me. So again, this goes on for, geez and Pete's, 2 hours. It got to the point where I answered the phone and I'm screaming it. Now, I got caller ID, and I can see exactly who it is that's calling me. And I'm screaming at this girl now, stop calling me. And remember, it's a sting. They have to record it for evidence. They'll just leave that part out, which again is why there is no narrative. There is no timeline in this narrative, because they do not want to admit that they kept calling me back for 2.5 hours. So it's probably about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I said I had enough. I scream at her and I tell her, stop calling me. I'm going to call the police on you. She doesn't care because she's the police. Again, this is not the norm for a person that works in the adult industry. This is not normal behavior for somebody. If they're not going to keep calling you back and keep being told no over and over again. So that tells me that the only reason why they want to come over is to do something. They want to find out where I live so they can come over when I'm not here and do something. Or even worse, come over and do something to me physically. Okay? Either way, I'm going to avoid the problem. If you don't know where the hell I live, then you can't come over. Even when I'm here or when I'm not here. But that's odd for the escort to keep calling you back. So what did I do? I called up the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I called up the non-emergency line of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And I told them point blank. I said, look, this escort service is calling me. They've been calling me now for probably over 2 hours. Like clockwork, every 5 to 10 minutes. And I keep telling these people to stop calling me. Well, why are they calling you? That's the problem. Now, the Jackson, again, it's the first ever reverse escort sting operation, and these people obviously don't know what they're doing. And now the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, like they don't know that there's this going on. The whole department doesn't know that this is going on. We're not talking about a bunch of rogue officers acting in off hours. This is a documented vice sting operation. So yes, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office knows. So what do they do? So instantly, I am a criminal according to the woman that answers the non-emergency line, and all I'm doing is reporting a crime. And I already know, now they know, I know it's not a crime to call up an escort service. Because it's not a crime. Period. So she says, well, why are you calling an escort service? I said, what the hell does that matter? Yeah, I'm getting a little hot. I said, is there anything you can do to make these people stop calling me? Here's the phone number. It's on the front page of the ad. Here's the name of the service. Here's the phone number. Can you please call them and tell them to stop calling me? Because they know, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office knows that it's harassment. Well, guess what the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office tells me? Huh? What's that? You can't guess? I'm going to tell you what they tell me. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. Just don't answer your phone. Excuse me? I'm running a business. I've got a business. This is my home phone. Your home is your castle. They are invading my privacy every 5 to 10 minutes. They're calling me up, asking me if I want to see them. Well, don't have them come over. I said, there's no way in the world I'm going to have them come over. See, they were trying to make me think like I was committing a crime. Why? Well, because I just reported the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office violating my constitutional rights, and they're violating my constitutional rights while they are posing as law enforcement officers, because they just stopped being law enforcement officers just by calling me back. And now I've just documented it. I have the audacity to call up the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and report the crime of harassment to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, but the Jacksonville doesn't want to do anything about it simply because the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office knows it is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office vice unit that is the one that is doing the harassing. Now do you understand why this 1997, 12/3/1997 arrest and booking report has these false made up, non-existent charges listed, and still in the year 2017 is sitting, the original copy of it is sitting at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office without any disposition on it. And why this court date has never been met. I think you got a pretty good idea of exactly why now, don't you? Let me make this perfectly clear. Okay? All of these lines right here, from this, all of these lines, it took probably about 5 minutes for all of those lines to take place. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. Okay? Now, everything that I've been talking about, Officer Ratley called the defendant, and over the ensuing conversation, that line right there is 2.5 hours of long. 2.5 hours long. Officer Ratley called the defendant, and over the ensuing conversation, it should say conversations because, again, she called me back every 5 to 10 minutes. And as I said, I think I said earlier, I got off of work at 2 o'clock. I was home by 2:30 reading the newspaper. And it doesn't take me that long to read the sports page because there's really not that whole much going on in December. Okay? So I probably started calling. I seem to remember I made the first phone call, the initial phone call, to ask the question of requesting information at about 3 o'clock. So by the time I call up the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office non-emergency line to report these people, by the time this line is taking place, it is now about 5:15. 2 hours and 15 minutes later. I made the first phone call, the initial phone call. I know, I believe earlier I may have said 3:15 or 3:30. It was about 3 o'clock. Because I was home by at least 2:30. And it doesn't take me that long to read the sports page. And this initial phone call to them was, what, a minute long? All I had to do was wait for the people to call me back. I mean, it was that quick. Hey, I keep seeing your ad in the newspaper. So this, and so I was just wondering for information on how it all worked. Which again is why they have information in there. Okay? So, I just wanted to point that out that this sentence is 2 hours, about 2 hours and 15 minutes long. That's when I called up the Jacksonville non-emergency number. And that's when the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, to report these people calling me back for, over 2 hours. And that's when the officer tells me, well, nothing we can do about it, just don't answer your phone. And it's because I called that phone number. Remember, their whole goal is to end up with this newspaper article in the Florida Times-Union to talk about how bad of a problem that we have here in Jacksonville with these terrible, terrible escorts. And here's something, I don't know if you notice this or not. Okay, this was written on 12/12. Okay, that's when it was published. It was 12/12. Down here at the end of the article, it says that the escorts have been the targets of the stings, with detectives posing as would-be customers. This year, Vice detectives has arrested more than 20 escorts for prostitutions and such stings. 20 escorts in an entire year? Think about that, folks. Think about that. Let me pull up my calculator here. That's 20 escorts divided by 12 months. That's a whopping 1.6 escorts arrested a month. And they're acting like they're getting rid of America's Most Wanted. Kind of trivial. I can think of a whole lot better things for any law enforcement agency to be doing than to be walking around trying to prevent abducting people for trying, or in their words, discussing sex acts. But hey, maybe that's just me. I don't know. So after calling up the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office non-emergency line and having that wonderful sheriff deputy tell me to not answer my phone, I was dumbfounded. But now you know why. Again, they got to do something about me now, because I just reported the number. I just reported the number to them. I just reported the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office harassing citizens to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And what's their response? Just don't answer your phone. I don't know it's the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, but the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office should know that it's the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Because, again, somebody calling you up, you call up somebody that you don't know. You call them up 5 times in a row. Let's see how fast it is before the law is calling you up. Before you get harassment charges. These people had been calling me up for over 2 hours, probably about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So now they got to push real hard to try to get to me, because hello, they fully intend on putting out a story just like this. And what am I going to do? I'm going to bust them. I'm going to say, wait a minute. I called that number. Because, hello, there's nothing wrong with calling up to an escort service. There's nothing wrong with having an escort come over to your house. If there's something wrong with having an escort coming over to your house, then why is it okay to have a stripogram come to your house? Or a singing telegram? Why is that okay to have to pay them to come to your house? Huh? Why is it okay to pay a cleaning service, a maid service, to come to your house and clean your house? Because none of that is illegal, just like it's not illegal to have an escort come over to your house, because what happens between 2 consenting adults behind closed doors is nobody's business. I don't care what you do behind closed doors, and I don't care who you do it with, simply because I know I don't have to give an account for what you do behind closed doors, in private or in secret. The only thing that I'm going to have to give an account for to my Creator is for what I do. And all I'm doing is reporting crimes. But you see, it just turns out that I'm reporting criminals to criminals. The criminals that I'm reporting just happen to be the Jacksonville Vice The Jacksonville Vice. They're the ones that are criminally harassing. Tormenting. That's torment. Your home is your castle. So now they have a problem. Because as soon as they come out with the big story, with the big news, then I'm going to say, wait a minute, hold on, because remember, I've got caller ID, I've got the newspaper ad, so that you know what, they cannot run this story calling out the absolutely Jax's hottest escorts, because I got the newspaper. I've already told the guy, I've already told Strickland. I've already told Strickland that I've seen the ad for several days. They know exactly how long they've been running the ad for. I'm a problem because I'm going to expose them for the control freaks, the bullies. This is harassment. And remember, it's the very first time that they've ever done this. And remember, I am the second person in 2 days that they're doing this to. Because it happened to 2 other men. One man on the second, myself on the third, and a third man on the fourth. Don't worry, I'm going to show you that. So anyway, I have no idea that it's the police. But the police know it's the police, and they're refusing to do something about this. So I make up my mind. I said, okay, well, look, I got to do something to get these people to stop calling me. I got to do something to have these people stop calling me. So I'm thinking, how in the world do you upset a female? How do you upset a female that is talking about and bases her value on her looks? Oh, I know. I'm going to call her old. If she calls back, and I know she's gonna. She's only been doing it for almost 2.5 hours now. I'm going to ask her exactly how old she is. And however old she says, I'm going to tell her, oh, no, that's old. That's way too old for me. So that's exactly what I did. And just like clockwork, almost as soon, it was like 3 minutes after I hung up the phone with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office non-emergency line, my buddy Sabrina calls me back, asking me again if I would like to see her. Because remember now, they are trying to convince you that they deem what is legal and what is illegal. They try, if they can convince you that you are a criminal, then you will admit to committing a crime that isn't a crime. And if you want to admit that if you want to confess that you're a criminal, the law says fine, you can confess that you're a criminal. That's how they get away with this solicitation of prostitution, ungodly statute. Because they've convinced you. And the reason why people are convinced of it is because, again, we as a society condemn people. We like to think that we're better than somebody. And for all those people who say, oh, well, they're just selling themselves. They're selling themselves for $1. Well, what the hell do you think a job is, jackass? Think about that. Think about that, you pompous, arrogant fool. You are giving up your whole body. You are giving up the most precious commodity that you have, which is time, because you do not know how much of time you have, nor when your time will end. And you're giving it up simply for money, to spend your time doing something that, well, heck, nowadays, I think one statistic said that 80% of the people that have a job hate doing what they're doing. The only reason why they're doing it is for money. Do you really think that these women actually like, enjoy, look forward to laying down with complete strangers? No, they hate it. They hate it. The only reason why they do it for the vast majority of them, no, it's not drugs. Stop labeling people. The vast majority of these so-called prostitutes have children because they've made mistakes, they made some bad choices, they fell in quote unquote love with a very terrible person, a wannabe man who just knocks them up and then leaves them standing dry. And I'm sorry, I have yet to meet a good real mother who is not willing to do anything to take care of their child. Again, Jesus is the solution. A real man that has a good relationship with his creator, he's not going to abandon his responsibilities. Heck, he's going to do everything by the book, by the word of Almighty God. He's not worried about trying to conquer women. He's going to cherish women. But I digress. So if they can convince you, and that's all that's if they can convince you that what you're doing is against the law, is a crime, then they've won the battle because you're admitting you're a criminal. And a lot of you all know, everybody says, well, how do they make money? The state of Florida plays, I don't know what it is now, but back in the day, it was the state of Florida pays every jail $75 a day per person that they have in that jail. And that's exactly how any sheriff's department, how any police department makes its money, is off of the people that they incarcerate. So what easier way to get somebody to arrest somebody is to browbeat them and shame them into believing that they committed a crime, that they are a terrible, horrible person, simply because they were trying to have sex out of wedlock. We'll get into exactly why they're doing it today. But why are police still doing stings today? Well, they're money. But it's a whole lot more than just $75, as you'll see. So anyway, my good friend Sabrina the Good Witch, she definitely calls me back, just like clockwork. And she says, well, have you made up your mind? Have you decided yet? And I told her right point blank. I asked her, I said, how old are you? And that took her aback. She didn't know how to answer that question. She says, what? I said, how old are you? And she didn't know what answer to give. Because remember, her goal is to just show up at my door. Because if she can show up at my door, she believes that I have $100 to $150 cash and they can arrest me for soliciting for prostitution. So she says, I can't remember, it was either 23 or 26 or something like that. I don't know. And whatever she said, I said instantly, without even skipping a beat. As soon as she got the age out, I said, oh, that's old. And she was like, what? I said, aha, it's working. I said, oh, yeah, that's old. No, it's not. I said, oh, yeah, it's working. Let me pile it on. I said, oh, don't tell me it's old. That's old. That's way too old for me. I like much younger girls than that. So now remember, this girl, Sabrina, has been calling me up for about 2.5 hours now. about 2 hours and 15 minutes or so, telling me how desperately bad she needs money and how she's willing to do anything for money. Because that's why they do this, is for money. They're not going to invest all this time because they're like, hey, there's plenty of other fish out in the sea. They're not going to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back to the same person just for the same person to keep telling them no. Unless they're the Jacksonville Vice that's running the first ever reverse escort sting operation. So now remember, she's been calling me up for well over 2 hours now, and she tells and she's telling me how desperately she needs money, and how she's willing to do anything to make some money, and how happy I will be. We will have a really good time. I can guarantee we'll have a really good time. Her words, not mine. And I just called her old. Told her she was way too old for me. I like much younger girls. So what do you think Miss Sabrina does? Well, Miss Sabrina, out of her rectum, pulls out an 18-year-old little friend. She says, I have an 18-year-old right here who would be more than willing to come see you. And right then and there, I knew. These people are up to no good. Nobody's going to invest all that time and energy into making $100 only to give it away to somebody to somebody else. Ain't gonna happen. So I said, really? Yeah. Got a little 18-year-old right here. I said, you know what? Because I'm on to them now. There ain't no way in the world I'm gonna have these people come over. I'm gonna turn up the heat real bad. I said, you know what? I like them younger than 18. And you know what? If I wanted to see somebody, if I wanted to see a young girl, I'd just see one of the young girls from the neighborhood. Of course, there are no young girls in my neighborhood. It's all family, adult couples. There are no teenagers living in my neighborhood in 1997. How about that? I just want these people to stop calling me, thinking that would have done it. You want to know what Sabrina's next words are to me? Well, I have a 14-year-old little sister. I said, excuse me? She said, yeah, I have a 14-year-old little sister. Let me call her up because I'm sure she's home from school now. Let me call her up and see if she's home from school now. And let me ask her if she would be willing to come see you. Now, remember, folks, maybe some of you all know this, maybe some of y'all don't. I am a victim of child molestation myself. By today's standard, just so I'm clear, I had nothing inserted into me. Nothing. I had nothing inserted into my mouth, nothing inserted into my anus. By today's standards, it would be called sexual fondling. The first thing that happened, the first time it happened, I was about between 5 and 7 years old, where I was forced to touch a teenage boy's penis, erect penis. Then the next time was by my I was also, just real quick, my stepfather, an 18-year-old female, that next door neighbor, and two teenage 15, 16-year-old teenage girls. So don't tell me that girls can't do that either. And again, I was nothing penetrated my body, any orifice on my body. But I was forced to touch others, and others touched me. The biggest culprit was my stepfather, who every chance he got, he would shove his hand down my, what, between, I don't know, 8 and 12, put his hand down my back, underneath my underwear, and caress my bare buttocks. He did that every chance he got. Also made me take showers with him. I had no idea what was going on. Then, I know now what was going on. And now here this woman, the good little witch. Now you want to call her something else besides a good little witch now, don't you? Don't blame you. How you think I felt? This good little witch, Sabrina, has been harassing me for over 2 hours. And now is offering up her 14-year-old little sister to someone who is himself a victim of childhood molestation. And again, by today's standards, it would be called sexual fondling. And it's the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Vice Squad that's doing this to me. What did I tell her? I screamed at the top of my lungs. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see your little 18-year-old friend. And you are a sick female dog. Do not call me back again. And I hung up the phone. Why? Because I was so upset, because all the memories of every single time that I was put in a lewd or lascivious type situation came rushing back. All those memories came flooding back. So what do you think Sabrina, the good little witch, does? If your guess is she calls me back, you are 1,000% correct. This time, it was like 3 minutes. And this is what Sabrina says. Sabrina says, look, I got my little sister here, and she's willing to come see you. Do you want to talk to her? Good, hold on. Let me put her on the phone. Here she is. Just stuck her on the phone. And that's why this says, let me zoom in. That's why this says that Officer Radley, we're right here, Officer Radley called the defendant, and over the ensuing conversation, the defendant wanted a younger girl. It says that I wanted a younger girl because they offered me, Officer Radley or Sabrina offered me her 14-year-old little sister. Then Officer Radley, this is also why it says Officer Radley told him she would call him back later, because I told her not to call me back. And that's why it says Officer Radley called him back and told the defendant that she found a 14-year-old little girl. because she told me she had a 14-year-old little sister and let me see if she was willing to come see you. And who's the 14-year-old little girl? Well, it was probably going to be Officer Etheridge is the 18-year-old, was the 18-year-old who I never spoke to. And now all of a sudden, well, we need you to be 14, Etheridge. Because if we don't get this guy, well, we're all going to go to prison. And that's why it says, and the defendant wanted to talk to Officer Etheridge. And none of it happened. The truth of it is, they got to say that. They've got to say that. Because the truth is, she offered me her 14-year-old little sister. And remember, my version of events is recorded, is being recorded. And everything is on tape. Now all they're trying to do is this is that whole thing is Strickland's training kicking in, because remember, they see 15-year-olds, they see 14-year-olds, and they see 14-year-olds. And who's the one setting them up? J.W. Strickland. J.W. Strickland is coaching this Officer Ratley to tell him, hey, offer him a younger child. That way we can set him up. We can arrest him because, hello, he's calling the police on us. So now we've got to take him out before he takes us out. Now do you understand why this says what it says? And now do you understand why this 1997 original arrest and booking report is still sitting at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in the year 2017 without a final disposition, without this arraignment date ever being met with these fake charges on it? Because they prosecuted a false arrest.